이것이 하늘의 검!
Exxon Arena in Gangnam, Seoul, South Korea, where we are bearing witness to the comeback of not only score to KT's roster, but KT Rolster to a 1-1 tie versus KONGDOO Monster. And now with a successful lineup together for KT, is this enough to close things out? It certainly seems so with a somewhat lackluster performance. KT ends ADC.
Yeah, and you know, Seoul's performance in game number 1 was actually really good, but in game number 2, it looked like he was sort of spaced out, and his positioning at so many points just was really, really poor, and it ended up resulting in just KONGDOO getting to a point where they couldn't recover from. Punch, still very impressive, very slippery on that Lee Sin, and Edge had a pretty impressive performance on the Victor, but Score, really impressive performance, and KT, I said it before, if you give them an inch, they'll take it a mile.
And they certainly did there towards the end. So let's head into picks and bans and find out what KONGDOO Monster are going to do to really stem the tide of KT Rolster. First ban off the bat is going to be a J. Should see the echo. Yep, there it is. Same start to the ban phase as previous. It'll be interesting to see if either team really targets anyone specific. Okay, well, just like that. Score, no Olaf for you.
Yep, and Olaf will be taken away. Now again, KONGDOO Monsters is blue side. So Syndra is on the board, and it's the same exact pattern. You're either going to give us Syndra or you're going to give us Nidalee, and I feel like this is an error in KT Rolster's bans.
Well, they do leave Nidalee up, but, I mean, where... Okay, well, we'll see what's picked first. If it's not Nidalee, there's some big question marks out there. I mean, Nidalee is not just, you know, the best champion in the entire world, but certainly pretty close to it.
I think that Nidalee is definitely up there with Syndra right now for the 2 most bannable champions, and that is not a Nidalee.
Okay, well, it should be pointed out that KT Rolster have banned Jin away from Seoul every single game. Now, that's because it's his highest win rate champion, his most played champion. And if Seoul's the problem that you had with game 1, maybe picking that up and sort of band-aiding that issue returns KONGDOO Monster to the place they need to be.
Alright, and I mean, it probably is going to be pretty nice to see how Seoul performs on that Jin pick right now as KT Rolster selecting their champions, and no Nidalee being highlighted right now. And I believe that she has been banned 100% of the games in this KeSPA Cup.
Absolutely. So not seeing that so far. I mean, what is the world we live in when a champion that is banned every game is foregone for other picks? So hovering the Zyra Lee Sin pick here for KT looks certainly, I guess that's good by Score to take Lee away from Punch, but now we get a chance to see Punch, what he has in the tank to punch back with.
Yeah, and let's see what KONGDOO Monsters picks. I would be very, very, very shocked if Nidalee does not get picked by them. Currently, they are hovering Ryze and Rek'Sai. And Rek'Sai is also a champion that we haven't gotten to see too much of.
Certainly not as much. When Punch did play in Challengers Korea, Rek'Sai was his, I believe, first most played champion, next to Elise. It's locked in, and there's the game finally where Nidalee is neither picked nor banned, just to screw up our stats.
Yep. So this will be the first time that Nidalee is neither picked nor banned in this entire tournament. And she was definitely picked or banned during Worlds as well. Probably one of the most picked or banned champions this entire year, if not the most. I think that she would be.
I think there were stats just released for those, the most picked and banned champions worldwide. Have to go back and check that. This is where it gets a little bit interactive, so you guys out there can let us know what the most picked and banned champions were. Either way, it's the next 2 lock-ins for KT Rolster, who returned to day 3 of the KeSPA Cup and grabbed that very popular Malzahar.
Yep, and the Malzahar pick, I don't know exactly how Fly is going to play this into Edge's Ryze, but nonetheless, Malzahar, one of the most strong scaling champions that still exists in League of Legends. We had not seen him very much leading up to the KeSPA Cup, but we did get to see him a few times in the KeSPA Cup, and every single time he looked pretty okay.
Yeah, I actually meant day 2. We had that Long Zoo and Jin Air series where Malzahar was just going off. So nice to see him returning. Now hovering over the Evelyn is not gonna work out. The final picks though add super tankiness to KONGDOO Monster. Poppy and Braum locked in. Last pick here, it's gonna be Hachani locking something in for someday. Now, I mean, we've seen guys like Trace run Malzahar top lane. That's not what's gonna happen here. And finally hovering over that Gangplank. I mean, that's usually a pick you'd play into something passive that can't do anything about it.
Yeah, generally Poppy is going to be able to have a pretty okay time against Gangplank. Okay, and we see a swap hover over to Trundle. It's not something that you would generally want to pick after Gangplank's nerfs, and there's a lot of ways to handle him. So, KONGDOO Monsters again with another standard team composition. This time they have a lot of playmaking potential on that Rek'Sai and that Ryze. And I also want to point out that Rek'Sai, because of her ultimate, she is a pseudo split pusher, and pairing that with the Ryze, we might actually get to see some interactions where you have a dual split push inside of the Ryze and the Rek'Sai, because Ryze is able to ultimate whoever is with him back to his team. So you have this interesting dynamic where Ryze is ranged and can keep autoing the turret, and then the melee champion dissuades the opponent from trying to resist the split push. So KONGDOO has some interesting gears. KT Rolster though, Arrow back on that Caitlyn. Very impressive performance last game with it. And score on the Lee Sin, lots of playmaking potential.
And while there's no Poppy to counter the Ryze ultimates, Strength of Thorns is a great opportunity to do that too for Hachani. So some interesting interactions across the board, but that's going to do it for our champion picks and bans as we come into our final game of the night. And here, there on your screen, you see KONGDOO Monster. They both begin with K's. It's Roche Punch, Edge Soul, and Cougar. And their opponents coming back from Game 1 deficit. KT Rolster, Someday, Score, Fly, Arrow, and Hachani. So get out there on social media, hashtag KeSPA Cup. Of course, let these teams know, hashtag KDM win or KT win to support your team as we get into our final game of the night. This is game number 3 between KONGDOO Monster and KT Rolster. Up against the line, on it for both teams. KONGDOO Monster come out into game number 3 on the blue side, facing off against KT Rolster on the red, and sort of as if to make a point, Score grabbing that Lee Sin away from Punch, trying to show what he can do on it. Of course, Punch on his most picked champion from Challengers in a comfort space as well.
Yep. And right now, again, as per most games in the KeSPA Cup, we are seeing a fan out by both teams. No one wanting to get very dicey early on.
Cougar committing to a ward down there just to make sure that nothing too scary is going to go bump in the night. Low Arrow scouting things out there. Okay, this is like the most boring start to the game, so let's try to make it a little bit more exciting by talking about Hachani and his proclivity for giving away first blood. Walking into a now warded bush as far forward as possible. Can he make it happen again? Come on, flash over the wall. You can do it.
Oh, this can actually get very dangerous.
He's just in the most vulnerable spot. Does take that first little bit of damage, but is walking forward pretty aggressively. Both junglers get some leashes. We get into our actual laning phase.
Yep. So pretty standard starts. Both of the mid laners definitely going to be wanting blue. However, the benefit for KT Score is that his path is going to directly, again, synergize with being able to help that bottom lane if they so require it, whereas Punch has to then make a U-turn and come back to hand off the blue onto Edge on that mid lane. And honestly, there's very little kill potential up in top, so that's not a side of the map that he wants to be on.
Very, very true. Mid lane is actually going to be an interesting matchup to watch because while we talked about the infinite scaling from Fly's Malzahar, for Edge, it's going to be is this Ryze the pick to lead them to victory and great justice? Because when it comes to Ryze, I feel like we have not seen an appreciable number of super strong Ryze performances in the KeSPA Cup so far. No,
we have not. Ryze is a champion that's in a little bit of a weird spot right now where he is really strong, but there are other factors at play on how he can get there and how he can coordinate with his teams. But right now in the mid lane, there's only about 5 champions that are meta, and he certainly is one of them. Not bad by any means, but I am excited to see Fly on this Malzahar pick here because Malzahar is a champion that faded away from popularity despite his nerfs not really being that big. And hopefully we actually get to see him return to power because he's a very strong champion that offers a lot to your team.
Well, now both manaless junglers should be in the process of handing this blue buff over to their mid laners. Who do you think benefits the most from having being able to grab this blue buff early?
Well, Fly having the blue buff means that he's going to be able to just spam out his Voidlings, spam out Malefic Visions, and push the wave as much as he wants. The added benefit, though, for Edge is that with his Tear of the Goddess that he already has, he's going to be able to charge that up very, very, very fast. And his damaging spells are going to be very threatening for Fly.
Huge amounts of poke there from the KT duo, taking Gugur down below half and pushing the wave along with it towards his KONGDOO turret. Really, KT completely in control of the bottom half of the map, and now getting a chance to see what they can do with that pressure. So we saw a recall there from Score to pick up his jungle item early, just for additional 3 wards there. For Punch, he did manage to hand off that blue buff. Hasn't necessarily been back to base himself.
Nope, and he has not been back to base. He just hit level 4. And after Wolves, we can probably expect to see him recall. Now, the problem for Punch right now is he doesn't really have a clear-cut opening on any lane other than bottom. And neither does Score really until his laners hit level 6. The problem with that, though, is that Lee Sin is going to be a little bit more valuable to the KT Rolsters team composition than the Rek'Sai is as the game draws longer and longer.
Well, we're only 5 minutes in, and as we saw in game number 2 when Score came in, that was actually pretty uneventful for the first 20 minutes. Cloud Drake, of course, contributing to that, not about some objectives, force fights, but as soon as Score got going, he just took off, slammed on the gas, and drove KT to victory. Now, KONGDOO Monster this time around, they don't have the aggressive Lee Sin that works so well for them in Punch, but they do have his Rek'Sai. So I'm actually really interested to see how both of these now aggressive junglers will really pilot their team here during the early part of the map, as neither one of them has really been looking for too many early ganks so far. Yep. And by too many, I mean actually none.
Well, it's pretty hard to make ganks when you really don't have a very easy opening. Like I said, imagine Rek'Sai trying to gank onto Malzahar. First you have to get his shield down, and then you have to find a way where he's going to be pushed up and overextended.
Now, this is level 6 for Ryze. He's going to be attempting to roam down to the bottom lane and maybe ult himself in. Not going to go for it. Turns around instead. Punch ushered away from there as well. Towards River scouting all of that out.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, we're actually seeing Score do what Punch was doing last game, where it seems that he recognizes that the onus is not on him to make anything happen, as innately his team is just going to basically get ahead by going even. And so he doesn't have to be making any sort of the plays, where Rek'Sai, Punch electing for that Bomby Cinder, a little bit bizarre. Generally, you would tend to see a timeout so that you can just farm up and continue to get the items a little bit quicker. But that does mean that that probably will just be immediately turned into a Cinder Hulk for explosiveness in around the 12-15 minute mark.
All that explosiveness certainly happened in game number 2. Score's big first couple of kills that really helped him get out to the lead that we talked about Olaf's being so great at. Lee Sin and Rek'Sai certainly very strong early on, so excited to see how that transpires. It is a Cloud Drake once again early. We talked earlier about how that sort of slows things down as far as not being a super high priority objective the teams want to fight over early.
Right now, just trying to wait and posture to see if anything would happen, but I wouldn't expect anything chaotic to occur unless a Guger actually missteps and maybe gets locked up. Other than that, I can't see any chaos happening down in the bottom lane as both AD carries and supports are needing a recall desperately.
Continuing the shove, it certainly seemed like KT was on top of that earlier on. Now, like you said, is both of them, both AD carries rather, I guess Soul about to ding 6, Arrow slightly ahead. Here comes the Roam from the top half of the map. Roach is level 7, so does have his ultimate. Oh, actually, wow, has it canceled by the pillar. Actually terrible. There's the Malzahar ult on top of the subjugate. Someday helping KT Rolster pick up their first kill and put it on to Fly.
And First Blood Tower is a definite real threat right now, and we're going to take a look at that once again. And perfect timing by Someday to disrupt that ultimate from Roach, and with Fly here, it's all too easy to just bring him down. These are the type of plays that we can begin to start expecting now that Malzahar is past that level 6 point, and all the players now have their ultimates.
Now 3 ults and a Summoner's Spell used just to kill Roach. Is that a worthwhile investment for KT?
Yeah, absolutely. Just look at the CS deficit in the top lane. I mean, Someday is almost 800 gold ahead of his opponent, and he's looking poised to get the First Blood Tower up there, and that's something that you don't want to have to deal with. You don't want a Trundle to be that strong moving into the mid game.
All right, so finally starting to see one of those games where Poppy is picked, punished, and put so far behind that it's really going to be a struggle to get her to the relevancy that once the lane phase does inevitably end, especially if Someday is able to take that turret down. So nice to see KT realizing that they do need that advantage to start crushing down on the top lane and making it happen successfully. Someday about to have his ultimate back up, so once again able to apply that pressure onto Roach, and might just see the same trip back up to the top lane as Fly about to have his ultimate up as well.
Yep. And Score now, just trying to get some vision control. First dragon of the game is going to be a Cloud Drake yet again, and I mean, it's a nice dragon to have, but it's not something that you necessarily want to commit resources to if it would come at the cost of losing map position elsewhere. So, a little bit of posturing again. However, Fly about to have his Malzahar ultimate up yet again.
Oh, and Punch might just get ulted there. Yeah, can't get out of that one, but there's Edge actually in a great spot to put the damage down. Knocks Fly pretty low, but Punch pretty low as well. So, Summoner Spell committed there by Edge for what is actually just a disengage.
Yeah, and so that's going to be a victory nonetheless for KT. Fly definitely just wants to pick up this wave right here in mid lane. Does not have a lot of mana left. Definitely wanting a recall. Looks like he's going to be given that right now.
Quite a few CS just lost the turret there, so advantage somewhat for Edge in the 1v1, but at this point, it's at least seemed to be more about the pressure on the top lane. It's the only thing that's really happened this game, but now KONGDOO looking to make a play of their own. Heading down towards the bottom half of the map, will they hard commit for this? Because it's all being spotted out.
Yeah, I don't feel like KONGDOO Monsters can actually do anything right now. They might be able to pick up this dragon, but honestly, that's not really a victory right now, because it's just like you're looking at facing a first core item Trundle at around the 14-minute mark, and your top laner is so far behind him right now that you don't have a very easy response to him. And so when the team fights start breaking out, because it's very possible that a tower is going to go down here in the next minute or so, as the junglers make their way up to top lane, because that's going to be where the chaos occurs. So when that happens and the map gets busted wide open, KONGDOO Monsters are not yet at a scaling point where they're ready to fight.
Certainly not. I mean, they can definitely get there, but I mean, they're scaling on both sides. Poppy for KONGDOO, I mean, Jhin as well, also very hard scaling, but we already talked about how strong Fly can get on that's the Malzahar. Score heading up towards the top half of the map, walks over a ward, but just won't be dissuaded at all. Someday might commit for that, but Punch in the nick of time in a great spot.
Both junglers just sort of meet with each other, as Someday really definitely wants to get that top first tower blood. And Soul and Guger in bottom lane, a little bit of a CS lead, and here comes down Fly. Seems that they know about it, though.
Well, the weight's getting shoved in anyway, so bracking right on off. Score just now walking over that ward, and now this is not a great spot for Roach. He will get slowed out there. Ultimate does go off and knock something away, so at least Roach is okay, but the first blood turret does go to KT.
Yep, and all that gold is absorbed by Score. Not the best investment for it. Generally, you would want Someday to have picked it up, but it's going to be a pretty big advantage nonetheless. Someday going to push this wave and recall, and I'm pretty sure his core item is complete now, so we're going to see him recall into a Ravenous Hydra. He does have that teleport. Unfortunately for KT, they have no wards behind Guger or Soul right now, or we could see a very chaotic fight.
Yeah, a flank ward like maybe in one of those lane bushes on the bottom half of the map, and that would be a very in trouble duo lane. Now, the big question mark coming into this series was Soul. He was first picked, his most comfortable champion, and he's actually doing pretty well with it. He's 20 CS up in the matchup, and there's really been no signs of any success for Arrow in lane. Now, Arrow and Natani shoved in early, but I mean, Soul is just rocking it. First item is going to be the Youmuu's Ghost Blade, and this is one of the last few patches where that's really, the first item that you want to rush on AD carry.
Yep. Youmuu's picked up for Jin, and we'll probably see him follow that up with the Duskblade of Drakthar. And this is primarily because right now, I mean, outside of Trundle, not a lot of targets on KT are going to be itemizing armor, and this is just Jin's bread and butter build, which is very effective against teams that are going to be lacking a tank. And although Score has not yet shown what his build path is going to be after the first jungle item, so there's still the possibility that he goes into the tanky route.
Alright, well, that's going to be Edge getting out of there with a QSS, not going to be locked down by Fly. In the meantime, Punch actually did get off a blue buff steal with some help from Guger, so nice to take that away from him. And deny that buff. Punch back at it again, trying to at least maybe clear out some vision. Will clear a pink ward and playing relatively aggressively down there. Punch coming around behind, clearing out not one but now two pinks. Soul taking a little bit of harass there at the end. It was ace in the hole from Arrow, and coming back around. Johnny slowed out, but not going to tunnel in ahead of schedule, as there really wasn't that much follow-up from KONGDOO.
Now Someday continuing to shove Roach underneath his tower. 50 CS advantage for KT's top lane right
and a
now.
blue buff steal.
Yep. Now Score and Someday looking to move potentially mid lane. They could maybe wait for Rise, but it looks like Score wants to recall. He's probably sitting on a lot of gold right now.
Now Cloud Drake is up, and we talked about how that doesn't really make teams fight over it too much early. Probably one of the reasons that we've seen only one kill happen, but is the reason for this passivity both teams just wanting to scale up or not being able to find opportunities?
It's basically Cloud Drake super early on is generally an opportunistic Drake. It's something that generally you're rewarded with, or you're able to punish your opponent for doing something foolish with, neither of which has really presented itself this game, where there's really been no opportunity for either team to take it. Except for KONGDOO Monsters maybe had a very small timing window where they could have, but it's just not a worthwhile investment. Early on, the best dragon maybe in the first 3-10 minutes of the game is typically going to be Water Drake, and then anytime after 10 minutes it's going to be Inferno Drake or Mountain Drake.
Dragon not the objective, still just trying to find anything to lead to something. That's a pretty generic analysis, but you get the idea. These teams are looking, KDM around the Dragon area, just trying to find something to latch onto. So maybe they will use this Cloud Drake as the sort of, I double dog dare you to come fight right now, but cleaning out the area, won't go for it yet. Okay, well,
poke coming down onto Edge.
It's pretty much just Johnny poking out the river and trying to find anything at all to latch onto. A nice little captive audio, or deadly flourish there by Soul to break the fly shield there. Someday the one taking most of this damage, and here comes the curtain call. Now Subjugate will heal Someday up pretty highly. Flashing out away, and he'll stay alive. Now Googer the one to stand behind me on out of the fight. Those Voidlings will chase him out, take him down to just 300-400 HP. It's more like 500. Didn't count that correctly, but even still, everybody's still alive. We were so close, LS, to having something happen. I sensed it.
We were indeed, but today was not the day where we were going to see something happen right there. Maybe someday, but right now, someday not tanky enough yet to just sort of tank the entire team of the opponent. And Malzahar, a champion we talk about all the time, he really needs to get to that 3-item spike, and then it's like he becomes an entirely different champion.
Well, he does have the only kill in the game, so maybe helping get him a little bit further in there. But with that first dragon going over to KONGDOO, they get the extra move speed early, off of the opportunity of having just slightly won that team fight. I guess it wasn't really a team fight. It was mostly just both teams kind of awkward. It's like when you have those like awkward slap fights. It's just like, well, I'm just gonna deal a little bit of damage to you. It's like, well, I'm gonna deal a little bit of damage to you back. And nothing really happens, but it did for KONGDOO. They were able to snowball that into the Cloud Drake. It's an Ocean Drake coming up next, so once again, not those 2 super high priority Inferno or Mountain Drakes. See that in about 6 minutes. As we return to business as usual, the only real objective KT has taken has been that top lane turret. They did get the first blood from that on score, which, like you said, was not necessarily the best place to put it, even though he did get the extra gold. I mean, Punch is like 20 CS up on him, so just going to kind of even that jungle matchup out.
Yeah, Punch is certainly far ahead in CS right now, and one of the things that we can point out, though, about Malzahar and why right now in particular is he does have that 30% CDR, and that is the ability to grant your team immunity versus neutral objectives such as Dragon, Herald, or Baron. So with Baron coming up in just under a minute here, there is a possibility for KT Rolster to actually cheese it using the Malzahar Voidlings.
And especially with that Rift Herald on Sunday, taken at the 19th minute, it's basically just going to be on for an incredibly long time here, late into the game. So able to leverage that against Roach, who really doesn't need his lane opponent to have any more advantages over him. 50 CS deficit and really struggling to find the items he needs to stay relevant in this game.
And right now with the Rift Herald taken, and as you can see, Someday running away with it. That is a champion that is very scary to have a Rift Herald. One of the best probably in top lane meta right now. And now there's just going to be a little bit of posturing, and this is the point where KT, they want to just sit back and continue to scale up that Malzahar and that Trundle pick a little bit more. Now, the negative benefit of that is it's going to give Edge, who previously had invested into a Tear of the Goddess and a Quicksilver Sash, the ability to also start to get some damage for himself. And obviously Jhin, one of the best scaling AD carries in the game. So there is scaling happening from both sides, although I would argue that it benefits a little bit more for KT.
So we're at that 20-minute mark. In game number 2, this is where score really kind of started to take off a little bit. I think I said a little bit twice there, but this time around, Soul looks pretty solid and doesn't appear to be struggling as much. He's now 30 CS up on Arrow, and it's Achani getting caught out. Knock up, taken down, it's Punch to find the first kill for KONGDOO. Might be looking for more there underneath the turret. There comes a ghosting right Edge. Not taking no for an answer. Does miss that Q, but it's Soul to flash in to put himself on the board now. And that's a very aggressive forced play, but is it the power play KONGDOO needed?
And the problem with this is that Malzahar nowhere to be seen, and this was just KT getting picked off one by one, and they didn't really respect the Rise ultimate right there in mid lane, and unfortunately Arrow having to use all his summoners, and it was still in vain. And now 2 turrets going over to KONGDOO Monsters.
Second tier mid lane turret, pretty difficult to take, and with 2 off of just a couple picks, KONGDOO really exploding out there. I mean, when you're gonna name your team a monster, you better live up to it. That was a pretty big explosion after 20 minutes of really not that much happening. These are the 2 picks that really turn it around.
Yeah, so this pick where Arrow goes down, it's just really unfortunate for KT because you can see where Fly is on the mini-map and also Score completely out of position for all of this happening, and it all started with Hachani dying. So very big pickups for KONGDOO Monsters. It definitely helps them continue to accelerate forward in this game, and hopefully reach a point where they can try to drive home their advantages before KT can hit that scaling point on Malice and KONGDOO.
Quicksilver Sash already back up for Edge after using it to follow through for the kill onto Arrow. And at least for right now, things going KONGDOO's way. And now, nothing super secure just yet, but a 2,000 gold advantage is starting to be the presence of something that has been unseen for most of this game. I guess that makes it Faith. But now bottom lane, Roach trying to keep aggressive on the Someday will at least force him. Okay, I thought it was going to force the ult, but turns out Trundle's lifesteal is pretty insane and keeps it even. Which is also kind of surprising considering that he is so far ahead of Roach for so long and just going to disengage that fight, subjugate, really turning the health tide, taking it away from Roach and putting Someday near to full.
Yep. And we notice Poppy's build right now, by the way. Deadman's Plate and Sunfire Cape, lots of armor and hit points, but no magic resistance. So, you know, anytime that Roach tries to tank any of the damage coming out of Fly, gonna have a pretty bad time.
He's actually just gonna get melted, especially if like maybe third item is Leandri's. That would be lots and lots of damage to the magic resistance-less high health Roach.
And I would expect Leandri's Torment to actually be the third item, given how much hit points is actually stacked across 3 of the targets on KONGDOO monsters. Although there is an argument to be made for Void Staff. Water Dragon going to be picked up by KONGDOO monsters here. Not the best of pickups at this point in the game. It doesn't really do too much for them, but it's something to pick up nonetheless.
Next one's Inferno Drake, so that will be, especially when it comes that late in the game, a very strong pick for really either team. So 25 minutes. We've seen KONGDOO push the go button. They're back, almost back to a position where they have those big ultimates available. Well, they have their ults up, but it's going to be about summoner spells like Edge's Flash, so we can really just get onto Arrow, who split away from his team last time. And we all saw what happens to a very lonely AD carry in game 2. That time it just happened to a different one.
Yeah, and both teams fighting over Baron control right now, and KONGDOO monsters, they're the ones that actually need to be a little bit more careful with any sort of loss of Baron control because of KT's abilities to sneak it, even with just 2 members. Red buff going over to score, so not going to be stolen away by Punch. And right now, again, the game seems to have taken a standstill, but every time I've said that, a little bit of chaos ended up breaking loose.
It's all about that dysentery moment. If you've ever played Oregon Trail, as soon as one of your settlers gets sick, you just don't want it to take a turn for the worse. Well, that might be what's about to happen right now. Score the one to get knocked up, locked up, and force the Flash out. A nice Strangle Thorns, but not going to knock anyone up. And once again, big ultimates expended, but no benefit for either team. Would you say no benefit? Is there anything that KONGDOO got out of forcing that disengage?
Well, one thing that they did get is they got 2 flashes, and it's not just any flash, it's a Lee Sin flash, which is a pretty big part in his playmaking ability and also his ability to steal Baron.
Okay, well that time it's Arrow actually forced the flash defensively just to rejoin his team. Now it's Roach going to get locked up there, taking all that fly damage. The Voidlings actually might just kill him, but he's going to barely survive. A huge kick, but it's not going to be enough. I think that was actually not the fight that KT were really looking for. Neither team picking up any casualties. What's just happened there, LS? I guess we'll get a replay chance to figure it out, but a somewhat remarkable disengage.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very big victory for KT. They managed to get KONGDOO monsters off the Baron, and we're going to see it again. So the Rise ultimate channels. Roach is a little in a bad spot, but Someday taking way too much damage, and you can see the kick by Spore was absolutely fantastic right there, but everyone starts getting really low hit points, and neither team really wanted to commit to an even more extended fight because whoever wins that fight probably gets the Baron. That seems like a risk nobody was willing to take.
Once again, both of these teams trying to find the aggression, but also being too timid to commit in a situation, like you said, that might result in Baron, that could just be what blows this game wide open. So, once again, attempts at that aggression, but nothing coming of it. So, nice to see KONGDOO willing to put on the pressure, expend those ultimates to try to get into a good position at Baron, but KT able to come back and equalize. Oh my goodness, this would be the last game of the day for us. It's been by far our longest day here at the KeSPA Cup, and this is going to be our last day, our second to last day in KONGDOO. We're heading down to Busan at the end of the week for our semifinals and finals, and it's all about which teams are going to join us there. It could also be about which people are going to join us there. Certainly hope that everybody is able to come down and watch what is going to be an actually amazing spectacle of the current state of Korean League of Legends. After Worlds, we also kind of saw what the potential for the highest bar to be set was, and with all those teams participating having yet to be eliminated. Here we go, score, running away. It's the flank from Punch, does get one knockup. Fly able to disengage safely. He's off to the back, but is he in a safe place to turn it around with an ultimate? A pick on to score means that KONGDOO have set something up that they can work with. Curtain call, hitting a few, takes Fly down below half HP. I wish I could get away with saying tick tick boom like the Korean casters just did, but in the end, that's a nice pick on the score, and the Barons started off.
Yep. And I don't really see a way that KT can stop this. With score being dead, they don't have any steal potential, and even if they did, it's pretty hard to steal against a Jhin.
Fly down to below half HP as well. He'll have to be pretty timid. A knock away on Arrow means there's not a lot to stop it. That's going to be a nice fight to secure the Baron for KONGDOO. And with Roach getting into the front line to take out Hachani, is this disengage going to be enough? There's actually Edge off behind. Will immediately use a Quicksilver Stash to try to pick off these KT carries. Gets one. And anytime you lose your AD carry and support like that, KONGDOO knows all too well what state that puts you in. KT lose their jungler into losing a Baron, into losing their duo lane. And might just be the advantage KONGDOO need to secure themselves the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, but it does look like they will all be up to start the Inferno Drake. But anyways, right here, Roach starts off the fight by knocking away Arrow. And from there, he was able to pin Hachani against the wall. They get that kill. They secure the Baron. Cougar almost actually came back in and jumped to his death. But Edge, from behind, able to lock up one of the carries and delete Arrow from the team fight, and then from there, Someday and Fly were able to disengage, but nonetheless, a Baron picked up by KONGDOO Monsters, and now they're the ones who are first to react to the Inferno Drake. Teleport is available though for Someday, but it doesn't even look like KT Rolster wants to contest this, and that is a very scary thing to have happen to you when you're facing a Ryze and a Jhin.
Oh my god, yeah. The strong gets stronger here, and I really want to point out, like, and maybe there's some like deep meta mind games when it comes to picks and bans. KONGDOO Monster first picked Jhin for Seoul after an extremely weak performance. It takes a lot of confidence when you have a player who underperforms so drastically on KONGDOO Monster to say, okay, well, we're going to use our first pick to set you up in a position where you can really succeed. Now, on one hand, maybe that's just band-aiding the problem, but on the other, it actually shows a remarkable amount of confidence in their AD carry to say, all right, we still believe in you. It's just one rough game. We're going to put you into a position to succeed, and now you can really see that difference come out. 30 CS advantage still, even after the lane phase, and a great Jhin performance so far by Seoul. Yeah,
and KONGDOO Monsters have been really using this Jhin to a pretty impressive performance so far here in game number 3. And KT Rolster, they're on the back foot right now, but they're not entirely out of the game. You can see that Fly is almost at that Leandri's Torment, and that's that 3-item power spike that we talk about for Malzahar, where he almost becomes an entirely different champion because of the damage that he starts dishing out.
Should be noted, Ryze is already at that 3-inch, well, pretty much a half-item power spike with the QSS, and is kind of a monster. Inferno Drake buffing all of that up as well. They're talking about the AD carry deficit. Well, Edge has actually just been spectacular with a 50 CS lead of his own over Fly.
Yeah, and the problem that they're having right now is they can't find a way onto this turret I'm not quite sure why Soul wouldn't just start using his Jhin ultimate.
Oh, there's a sexy rotation. Rizel used just to make it to the mid lane. Now it's Roach to be locked up in the front line. He's going to go down before this fight really even starts. Soul firing away from the back line, but won't be able to find the last hit onto Echani. KONGDOO on the disengage now without their top laner. Will they lose more? Score dropping very low, and KONGDOO turn the damage back around. Edge, though, can't find anything to fit through all of those plants being spawned up by Echani, who drops low, but stays alive for now. Arrow! Holy cow, that damage took him way too low for comfort. He stays alive, and at the end of the day, KONGDOO disengaged successfully, but not without a very scary fight against KT.
Yeah, that was a very scary fight indeed, and a lot of the members narrowly escaped, so you can see this was actually a very nice rotation, but Roach going down right away, and then Soul missing that hit on Echani by like a centimeter, and then at this point, it's all about trying to live. Someday was trying to come around to get some sort of a flank pillar. They managed to lock up Score, he gets away, and then Punch tries to go in, and then instead of a punch, Lee Sin gives him a kick, and he manages to save himself and Echani right there, and then it's just who can pick off who, and unfortunately for either team, no one was able to find the kill right there.
I'd like to point out, Score survived, but he never flashed, so there was a moment where Punch actually used his Unburrow to knock Score up and prevent him from being able to Sonic Wave in his way all the way to the back side of the team fight. Could have gotten off a kick flash onto guys like Soul and really turned that team fight around, but a nice clutch Unburrow by Punch stopped him in his tracks, prevented that from being possible. You can really see a 100 gold advantage off of that Baron. Big air double quotes power play. So really completely unchanged.
Yep. And so we are moving now to the 35-minute mark, and third item is now completed for Fly. And on top of that, I mean, Someday is going to be making his way onto his fifth and final item in terms of offense anyway. So full items for Someday probably in the next few moments here, and everyone is starting to look very, very, very scary. And when it gets to this stage of the game, summoner spells are going to become even more crucial. Right now, KDM clearly has the advantage in that department, as Arrow and Echani are missing their flashes and heals and ignites.
All right, well, a possible catch there. Googer using the Unbreakable just to make himself tanky enough to survive, stay alive, and head back out against the deal on the Raptor camp. Might limit Score's ability to take out any ward coverage. And Edge and Fly up towards the top half of the map. Oh my god, actually so devastating. Arrow! Caught out in the mid lane and taken down. Soul with the snipe to now be the AD carry to punish Arrow, getting a little bit of revenge for game number 2.
Yeah, and Punch finding a kill right there onto Arrow, having to use his flash though.
Okay.
Thundercats, whoa.
Well, Lion-O there in the top lane to kick Someday back away and really keep the idea of this success, of this trip to Busan alive for KONGDOO Monster. I can't really, okay, we're about to watch that. It's just...
So, one hit, two hit, third hit would have gone off, and they have to know that Arrow doesn't have flash, so why did Punch flash?
I think at that point, just the guaranteed kill was just too attractive of an option. So you just you put all your eggs in that basket, and they were actually able to break an inhibitor. So not the champion that you would have liked to have that Arrow kill on, just because of how hard Soul does scale, but a huge pick in and of itself.
Yep. So now Soul is pretty big, just checking on the Baron right now. You see that it is up, and this is going to be the center of attention right now. Another dragon coming up. That will be the Elder Dragon, which this is patch 6.21. So Dragon will continue to be a little obnoxious to kill if you have more dragons. So the less dragons you have, the easier it is to kill. And both teams just basically posturing right now. Any mistake by either team is going to result in a lot of chaos happening.
Yeah, we just saw that one mistake from Arrow, and Soul able to just completely dominate him. Arrow with a 1-3 score, even Score with an 0-1-2. So I don't know, KT. I mean, a team of this caliber, and they didn't go to Worlds, but they're still insanely good. They've got their hometown roster together here. So win's never really out of their grasp, but it certainly seems like time after time, it's about to sing a song, with KONGDOO coming out on top, 6,000 gold lead, coming here into the latest phase of the game where the scaling might start to get a little out of control.
You can see that Roach moving down to the bottom lane where Someday is right now. And they are probably skirmishing, as we can see on the minimap, but not too much is happening, although KONGDOO Monster's going for a pretty cheeky cheese.
It'll be scouted out here. I mean, already getting chunked down. A fourth, a third, half, dropping lower. Where is Score when you need him? Behind the queue, into the pit. He gets the steal for KT Rolster, and he's gonna get out alive. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was absolutely gigantic right now for KT, because now they're going to be able to resist any sort of follow-up siege that KONGDOO Monsters would have wanted right now, and this is just a disastrous spot to be in. Score recalling, rushing down to the Elder Dragon. This is KONGDOO Monsters' other opportunity to try to win the game. The question is going to be, can Score do it twice?
Oh my God, they're not going to give him the opportunity. Wisely disengaging. I'm still just in awe. Like, how much of a higher caliber jungler do you need to pull off steals like that when it really just counts the most? And for KONGDOO not respecting that, a tragic misstep that will either draw this game on longer or possibly put KT in a spot where they can be the ones to succeed. Roach is going to find Score out here. Oh no, this is not a place Score wants to be. Now flexible enough to be able to get back over the wall and stay safe, but even still, a scary, tense moment, and we just saw a Baron power play that resulted in 100 gold. Let's watch this and see how low this Baron does get.
That was a pretty perfect smite. Yeah. I don't actually think you could get any more perfect of a smite than what Score actually just pulled off. And here's a fight.
Locked down. Googer, the target of that suppression, will drop, but he's going to be able to revive here with the Guardian Angel. Roach trying to front for him, so they will be able to disengage. And some big crits pushing Someday down lower in the health department. Now, it does certainly look like Roach is going to be the first to fall. Voidling knocking him down. They'll actually get the last and pop yet another Guardian Angel, but still tons of damage coming out from Soul that put KT in danger zones.
Yeah, and everyone does manage to live that fight. Both teams are now going back to their corners, basically. Definitely a little bit of a scary situation for KT. KT does have the Baron enhanced recall, though.
I think I misstated exactly who were the people to lose their Guardian Angels there. It was Roach and Score that actually had theirs taken out. Punch is still intact, but good job by KT. They do disengage in time to save both of their Nexus turrets, but now, Edge, does he have enough to stay safe here? Teleport's coming into the bottom lane, and there's Punch actually on the side to maybe stop this disengage. Roach is going to TP in. Both teams assemble, just like the Avengers, around the Dragon Pit.
Inhibitor is respawning. That was the Korean narrator saying that. So Inhibitor going to come back up. Big minion wave in bottom. Inhibitor has respawned. And both teams really just doing an Elder Dragon dance right now, because whoever wins the Elder Dragon is probably going to win the game.
Oh, Soul. Punch doing a nice job to block the ace in the hole so that it's not an ace in the Soul. The dance continues. This time Edge up towards the top half of the map. I mean, there's a huge wave, so he will have to go there, but KT do realize that, and as soon as he shows, that is going to be a big signal to start this Elder Dragon off. KT on it, dropping down lower. Rise will be able to ult in, and he will do it just to get closer. Elder Dragon down to 5,000 health. KT disengaged, knowing that huge wave on the top half is doing their work for them.
Yeah. Unfortunately for KT, the Voidlings did such a job. They took no damage from that dragon.
Oh, and now here comes the ace in the hole. It will be tanked up by that front line. Score and Someday actually one shot finding their way to Arrow. That's the linebacker defense. No way you're going to hit that. Crit does deal a little bit to Someday, who's going to heal it right back off with the death of that Scuttle Crab, rocking that King's Tribute passive. And look at that minion wave go.
That minion wave pretty big up there in top lane. And it's actually really impressive how patient both teams are being right now around this Elder Dragon. because it is so important, and we might actually just see everyone's Guardian Angels come back up.
Well, KT are doing a really great job recognizing that with no teleport on the mid lane and Roach's teleport down, the only way that KDM can deal with that huge wave on the top lane is going to be Rek'Sai. Then if you send your jungler away from the Baron pit, then or the Elder Dragon pit, then he's not going to be there for the fight. Now, luckily for KONGDOO, this is Rek'Sai, the only jungler in the game with a semi-full global. And wow, 0 difference from that Baron. It doesn't get much closer than that. Both teams just really on point when it comes to keeping this game going.
Yeah, and Soul now pushing back in mid lane. Everyone in the game almost at level 18 with the exception of the supports. And for the next team fight, everyone's going to have their summoner spells up, most likely.
I guess I could count Nocturne as one of the junglers that does have, I guess, a semi-global. That's a much shorter range, so I didn't really count that in the same category.
So one of the problems for KONGDOO Monsters team composition here is right now is we talked about early on that dual split push mechanic that is offered because of the Rise component to their team. But unfortunately, the game is now at such a stage, and because of Malzahar's Voidlings, it becomes too much of a real threat for KT to just say, okay, we're going to take Elder Drake, or we're going to jump onto your 3 remaining members using Malzahar's Flash and his Ghost. And at this point in the game, it's too risky, and their lanes are too ugly right now.
Certainly, and even when you look top lane, I didn't get a chance to check exactly the minions there. Seems like it is pushing away from KONGDOO, so they've gotten a lane into a position where they're happy with it. Bottom lane, though, is going to be pushing for KT, and that will be something that KONGDOO need to get under control. And it always amazes me how, like, even sometimes the tiniest little things can really make the biggest of differences. Just a few minions off on a wave, and it's going to push and snowball towards you, and might, pressure an objective or cause that turret to go down, like we just saw happen. And wow, just little things going wrong, but big things like that Baron steal certainly putting KT poised to steal their trip to Busan.
Yeah. And with Baron coming up here in 35 seconds, that's going to be another pretty big objective that's going to be on the map. And I mean, when Baron comes up, that's when stuff gets really tricky, because if you funnel too far down into the river to get Elder Dragon, the enemy team might just burst Baron, but KONGDOO Monsters saying that, no, we're actually just going to take Elder Dragon right now.
Oh my god, huge crits there. Score coming around the corner. Score! Can he do it twice? He gets the Elder Dragon! The second steal of the game! And KONGDOO Monster now ulting actually out of that Elder Dragon pit to safety. How does he get... I don't understand. It's actually incredible.
Score has pulled a rabbit out of his hat twice this game so far, and now KT Rolster going to be the ones that are going to move over to the Baron. And okay, it looks like they're actually not going for it, but Score has saved them twice now from the brink of death. If that Elder Dragon went on to KONGDOO Monsters, it's all too easy for them to just start a team fight because of how strong that dragon would make them. And any death on KT would result in the end of a game.
Oh my god. Score just jaw-dropping performance, and this is really an illustration of the way that he played in the postseason for KT. When his team was struggling, Score was the guy that was just going off 1v9. Kind of reminds me a little bit about like Bengi for SKT at Worlds, that guy that just would refuse to die, never say no, and just always try desperately to pull his team back from the brink. This has been Score's story. Or Scory, because he has just really been coming up the clutchest of smites, the biggest of picks, and KT Rolster now actually, can we say they're in an advantage?
Yeah, they're in a pretty big advantage right now. Malzahar approaching his final form almost, in which case KONGDOO's Monsters team composition does not have an answer for that. So someday, he's already been at 6 items. I wouldn't be surprised to see him actually sell boots even for another movement speed related item. And Malzahar about to get to the 6 item mark. Everything's really scary right now.
It should be noted that because KT had no dragons, this Elder Dragon duration will be very, very short. In fact, actually almost expired. So even though that steal was big, the biggest thing was actually that they prevented KONGDOO from taking it. And with a smite steal, that meant that there's really no way that during that duration, KONGDOO could really fight them.
Yep. And I mean, both teams have been posturing now for almost 10 minutes straight. It's going to come down to another Baron-related play, of course. But if they continue to do this, we're going to reach a point in the game where the minions just say, hey guys, look, we've had enough of this. And they start knocking down towers even more. So you look at the steal again. And
early
really
smite.
Unfortunate. Yeah, early smite. And even a little bit of a delayed smite by Score, actually. That 255 HP on that dragon stayed alive a little bit longer than you would have expected, but that's what kept KT Rolster in the game again. And
maybe this actually has an even greater effect by Score. 2 steals on incredibly high priority objectives has to make you, guys like Punch really think. Like, you can't just go for an objective and not think to yourself, you know, oh no, is it going to happen again? It's the Score effect, I guess. We'll find out. Now KONGDOO grouped up, and at any point, you can always just see these huge repositions with Ryzel. It's at rank 18, so very long distances to be traversed, and we're starting to see like the latest of the late games come to fruition.
Soul actually stole the red. Oh no, someday.
Oh no, he's going to get caught out there. Does have Guardian Angel, and a Subjugate for massive health gain. Now the turnaround, but Soul channeling his ult in the back line. Score going low there, but still, both teams sustaining for now. Now, Someday will be the first to fall. His Guardian Angel pops. Can the team zone for him long enough to get back up? There's another Guardian Angel down as Score gets his pop. Achani is devastatingly low, but so are Punch and Edge. Soul finds the first pick. And with a clip onto Score, he is going to be ushered very far away. With Achani down, is this the advantage for KONGDOO? They're so low, they can't go on to Baron.
Yeah, they can't go on to the Baron right now. They're going to recall, run straight up to the Baron. And unfortunately for KT Rolster, the pushing lane for them is top lane, which is the closest lane to Baron. And meanwhile, in bottom lane, there's a huge minion wave for KONGDOO Monsters. And KT, they still have flash up on a lot of their members. KONGDOO Monsters only lost their main summoners on Edge.
Oh, catch on to Someday. He's forced to flash backwards. Cougar frontline has the Unbreakable. Everyone disengaging. Now, Someday does have his ult back up again. So essentially another second life. That health gain was ridiculous. So he'll be able to get into the front line and stay there for a decent amount of time. Roach did TP back in, so he's back up to full health. At maximum efficiency, that time it's neither jungler smiting it, and Edge has to take matters into his own hand. Flash, the engage, poor Punch. That's going to be a kill on the Score! It's Soul, the liability from game 2, finds a kill that might just mean the game. With Fly getting caught out, it's KONGDOO Monsters! Now looking for a pick on Arrow. He's kiting for his life there, trying to find at least one. It's Roach, though, with a kill onto the KT carry. And KONGDOO Monsters now showing KT what the one-eyed KONGDOO Monster has in store. Probably one of the coolest logos in LCK or in Challenger's last split. It'll be in LCK next split, and it might just be on the stage at Busan for everyone to see what this previously Challenger roster can attempt to accomplish versus a team that many thought should have gone to Worlds. KONGDOO pushing in, knock up there onto Someday. These Nexus turrets dropping down, but a sizable amount of resistance there from the seemingly immortal Someday. Is he enough to keep this KT hopes alive with a crit and a kill on Hachani, and no Nexus turrets left? It's KONGDOO Monsters who take a 12-4 victory over KT Rolster to punch their ticket to Busan.
And that was a super impressive third game from Soul, and KONGDOO, like you just said, they're going to Busan, and they overcame the real KT Rolster lineup.
Is this just the KeSPA Cup buff that empowers these lower level teams to overcome their adversity and take out these higher seeds? Smiles on the KT squad, but after a game like that, you really have to go back and think about, you have a lot to think about.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot to think about indeed, and like I was talking about at the very start of this game, what losing could mean for this roster moving into LCK Season 7. And, you know, going back to KONGDOO Monsters, I had asked the question in their first series of the KeSPA Cup if, you know, they had things to worry about for Season 7, and I was still questionable about their play and their performance, but in the series tonight, with the exception of Soul's performance in game number 2, this was a super, super clean set and series from them.
Now, I really want to see a replay of that last fight, which looks like it's coming up here. This flash, the knockup, and it's Seoul. It picks off Score, and it really just goes from bad to worse.
Yeah,
KT.
it goes from bad to worse, and as soon as Score flashed in and failed the Baron, at that point, you basically have to think that it's all over. And this was KT trying to fight their way through a mountain because Achani was no longer present during this team fight. He gets there at the end, but it's too little too late. And as the Nexus falls, that is also KT's hopes in this tournament.
Actually just insane. I mean, how much more does a guy like Score have to do for your team? 2 huge steals, and just because he doesn't come up with the third one, the game ends. And so with that victory, KONGDOO Monster will ascend to the semifinals in Busan to face off against ESC Ever. That will be our the end of our games for today, but you don't want to miss tomorrow's games, which, if possible, could be even more insane as SKT takes on MVP and the Rocks Tigers take on the Jin Air Green Wings, which could set us up for a semifinals match just like a repeat of the one at Worlds.
Yep. And I mean, if the series from today are any indication of what might happen tomorrow, we could have MVP in the semifinals if they manage to overcome SK Telecom. But that's actually a map that I'm really looking forward to. MVP showed so much proactivity in their set earlier on in the KeSPA Cup, and I want to see how they can do against SK Telecom. But we're heading into a MVP interview.
Not going to give it away. Cast your final guesses as far as who you guys think it is. In the end, it is a 2-0 victory, or 2-1 victory for KONGDOO Monster over KT Rolster. Let's head it over to our little caster area for an interview with our KONGDOO MVP. Of course, reminding you guys exactly about the results and just waiting. I should note a very happy birthday to our host, Kyung, who has been delivering great performances for us all season long, and reminding you guys of our matchups for tomorrow. SK Telecom T1 versus MVP, and the Rocks Tigers versus the Jin Air Green Wings, who series I still can't forget after their round of 12, punching the ticket even further and with a trip to Busan on the line. You guys can join us there. You can find ticket information there online. Let's head over to our MVP interview with the 80 carry Seoul, who after a rough game 2, who really pulled it back for the team in game 3. Have a lot of questions for this guys, and we will have the opportunity to ask them. Big questions saying, Seoul, now you're really familiar with guys like Konghui, the Nice Game TV Challengers caster, where KONGDOO Monster has been all season long. So asking Seoul, how do you feel with yourself after that series? So the first series, or set, actually started pretty well, but I was pretty lost in set number 2. But overall, we won the match, so I think it worked out really well.
My question for Seoul is, after game 2, where your performance really suffered, how did you keep a good mindset and bring it back in game 3?
워낙 이 경기가 어렵기도 굉장히 어려웠었고 뭐 보시는 것처럼 다 알아들었네요. 일단 뭐 다 알아들은 것 같아요. 네. 그러니까 굉장히 힘들었잖아요. 그 다음에 3경기를 맞지 않게 마음 자세가 분명히 달라진 것 같고 저희를 실질적으로 잘 풀어냈잖아요. 어땠나요? 이 경기 끝나고 나서 일단 부산의 분위기는 어땠고?
경기 끝나고 좀 저희 팀이 잘 안 됐어가지고
네.
그걸 일단 찾고 저는 개인적으로 좀 제 자신에 대한 좀 자신감이 있었던
So Seoul says after the second match, our team atmosphere in the booth was actually pretty low. I lost a lot of confidence in myself, but our coach MC told me to keep on believing in myself. And if that's the power that MC offers to your team, that's pretty incredible. Seoul also adds to that to say that as a pro, it's your responsibility to be on top of your skills and have confidence in those. So that's the responsibility he felt like he was under and was able to pull it back in game 3. Now our next question is, what happened to the KONGDOO Monsters? Like, where did this improvement come from? And Seoul's saying, we had a really heavy focus on teamwork and working together as a team. So I guess that helped them improve. Caster Song asking, maybe a bromance may have developed between the bot lane. Soul saying that we have a decent relationship between him and Guger, but I tend to have sort of a weaker mentality. And an age difference of 4 difference apart between AD carry and support. So pointing out that maybe that has a little bit of a difference. So asking Soul what he would like to say to his support Guger. Soul saying, Guger, maybe you don't think this way, but given our personalities, I think maybe I'll try to get closer to you from now on. Of course, Guger being the older of the 2 players in the duo lane for KONGDOO Monster. Heading into our final questions for Soul after his MVP performance here tonight. Now, Challengers Korea AD carriers are actually tearing it up in KeSPA Cup so far. But does Soul consider himself the best of the Challengers AD carriers? See how Soul rates himself. He answers his final question. Soul says, at first I thought I was actually the best, but after watching the matches, I actually realized how good all the other players are. So spreading the credit around. Also adding that they're all very good players, so no comment for now. Although he does say that he does say, I feel like I can do better than Loken. So in their upcoming semifinal matchup, he's pretty confident in that matchup. Now, that's only because he's saying that they're also good friends, so a little bit of friendly banter there. So the KONGDOO Monsters fans are obviously very excited about this result and obviously moving forward to seeing them at Busan. So what would Soul like to say to the KONGDOO Monster fans? Soul saying, we have a long way to go, so please keep your eye on us, and we're going to work hard to go to the finals. So that's going to do it for our MVP interview. Once again, it is KONGDOO Monsters AD carry Soul with the MVP, and his team with a 2-1 victory, the narrowest of wins in deciding game number 3 against KT Rolster to advance to the semifinals. And once again, a reminder that our matches tomorrow will be SK Telecom T1 versus MVP, and the Rock Tigers versus the Jin Air Green Wings. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.